This is a how-to to get you started on the use of numbers on your iPad instead of Excel. And I say it that way because if you're in school or you're in business and you're using a spreadsheet program, chances are it's Excel because that's by far the most popular one that there is out there. And lots of times folks like to be able to be in a position to do work at home that they can take back to school or take back to the workplace and then use it with the computers that are there. Numbers, which is again the Apple equivalent of Excel, is built into all of the iPads. So you already have it there. If you don't have Microsoft Office, you don't have Excel on your iPad. And while you can spend the money to get it if you prefer to do that, many people say, hey, I don't want to do that. There's a lot of nice features that are in numbers, and I think it would make sense for me to just use numbers. And that's what the purpose of this video is, how to do statistical and business calculations on your iPad. The video is going to give you a step-by-step instruction in plain English that's going to get you up to speed very quickly. And, you know, the dilemma is, and just to be repetitive, that if you have a ton of work to do that's going to take forever if you do it manually, you want to use your iPad for the calculation. Then which software should you choose? And when you ask yourself that question, it's going to either be Microsoft Excel or Apple Numbers. Now there's a Google Docs program also, but if you're looking for all of the features to make your life easier, you're going to want to use either Numbers or Excel. This video and the subsequent videos that are going to follow this on my site is going to run you through what you need to know to be able to do the work using numbers. Excel is certainly the popular choice, but many people don't have it on their iPads. So this video is how to create great spreadsheets using Apple Numbers. Remember, Numbers is already on your iPad and it works great. So let's kind of move into it and start walking you through stuff. What you're looking at here is a table. And this table could really contain any kind of information at all. And what this is the end result as opposed to the beginning. And I want to start out that way by showing you what a table might look like. And this is one that I feel like is professional, and it's talking about inventory in a company that has a number of warehouses, and it's showing some calculated numbers on there that might be used to help manage the business. And so if we go right along, you'll notice that the top row and the first column on the left have a blue background with white writing. And those are permanent or fixed, a column and the fixed row. So as many columns as you might want to add to this or rows that you want to add, you'll easily be able to see on the top, because these are frozen there, that what the stock number is and what the description, inventory, and so forth is. Now what we're going to do after we just kind of review this briefly is now go through and show you how this table might be constructed and how you have tremendous options to customize it to things that you would like to see. So this starts out, if you follow this little ball here, with the stock number, then the description, the amount of inventory that they have, the cost, which is whatever it costs to buy that, the selling price, whatever selling price they came up with, and the margin. And the margin becomes a calculated figure, and I'm going to show you how the calculation is input so that numbers will do this automatically. The warehouse, WHSE, stands for the number of warehouse that they have around the country. And then there's a little code, which I will again show you how it was calculated, that's pulling out those items where the margin is low. Perhaps the advertising or sales department is going to want to review that in order to maybe make some changes or buy it from a different place. So hopefully you'll view this as a professional looking table, and then when we go through on an item by item basis, you'll be able to see is how we're able to actually create this table. Okay, you've seen the completed table. So now let's show you how that thing developed into what it looks like now. When you open up in Numbers a new table and you use the blank template that's there, you're going to get something that looks like this. And you'll notice that there's just a few columns across and only 10 rows down. And that's just the basis of how this is going to open up. If we would go to the last column there, which is in this case column E that I just highlighted, alongside of that you'll see a double line with a little circle. If I tap that one time, I've added another column to the sheet. If I tap it twice, still another. And if I hit it again, still another. Now I could do that in a different way, but I find that that's an easy way to do it. Similarly, if I go down, and I'm going to move the little bouncing ball for you, to the last row on this sheet, you'll see again those double lines. And every time I tap it, it's going to add a row to my column. I mean, to the number of rows that I'm looking at. And so 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, if that's what I want. And I could go on forever. Now, if I was going to add 200 or 300 or 500 rows, in a minute I'll show you a way you can just do that on a wholesale basis, because it's very easy to do. And now the next thing I want to do for my table is I'm going to go up to the title that says Table 1, and I'm going to call it something else. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to name it something, whatever I want for this table. Maybe I'm going to call it sample file. It doesn't matter. I can still name it anything that I want. Now, you'll notice that I've got blank information, and I've got the template, if you will, that I'm going to use for my table, and that's how I would get started. The information that the table is going to contain is whatever you want it to contain. And the custom look that you create is going to be the custom look that you would like to have for the table that you have created. So that's how you would get. Okay, so now what you're looking at is what would open when you just open a new spreadsheet. And you can name it anything that you want by just double clicking on the cell that says the name of the file. And I'm going to call it sample worksheet, but you could call it whatever you want and whenever you want. And then after you're happy with what you put in there, you can just click on that, and then that name is what will be there. Now you'll notice that the file that I've created only has a few columns and a few rows. And when you're setting yourself up, you have to look at the data that you're trying to track and decide how many columns and how many rows you're going to need. And Also, you're going to look and decide whether you want to have a header row and a header column. A header row, which is the thing going across that's shown in gray, is just giving you the data that is going to be frozen, so that no matter how many rows you add to the worksheet, that first horizontal row that's grayed out is going to stay there, so you'll always understand what's in the column. Likewise, when you look on the column on the left, if you want that to be frozen, because you might have 50 columns across and you want to understand what the data refers to, you would call that a header column. So those are two options that you have. The first thing that you're going to do when you look at this is to say or decide how many rows and how many columns that you're going to have. And so if I click on the little paintbrush here, that's there, and the sheet itself, you'll see a menu that opens up. If I go to the table, what shows in the table is the various templates that I could use. So just to illustrate what I'm doing, I'm going to take the one in the lower right-hand corner. And when I do that, it takes away the header rows. Even though I'm going to want to have header rows, for now, I just took those away. The other thing that this shows me when I look at it is if you count them, what I've got is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns on the sheet. Well, looking at the data, I think I'm going to want to have more than that. So I go over to where it says columns here. You can see it says 5, and I can change that to whatever I want. So let's just say I put in a 7. When I put the enter key, the return key down, it's going to add those columns. Then I look at it again and I say, oh, I really wanted 8. Well, I could go in and change the 7 to the 8 if I wanted, or I can go up opposite the last column, and you see those double lines in a circle. If I tap that one time, it just adds the one column for me. Likewise, when I look at the number of rows and I see that I've only got 10 rows here, I could go over where it says rows and change it to the number of rows that I want. And it could be 1,000 if I want 1,000. In this case, I'm just going to put in 28. Okay, so now I have a sheet that has the right number of columns to present the data I want to present and the right number of rows. Now, this is adjustable as I go along, but this is what I think that I'm going to want to have. So for now, I'm just going to leave it at that and then move along to add the information that I want to have to this newly created worksheet. Okay, in the interest of time, you're now looking at a blank sheet here that I want to use to create the table that's going to display my inventory and the other information that you saw in the completed sheet. And like I say, in the interest of time, I've already put all of the data in here. So I'm going to highlight all of these cells, just like I'm doing here. And I'm going to tap on the paintbrush here. And when I tap on the paintbrush, I get this drop-down menu. Well, the first thing that I want to do is, I've said I want to have a header row. I've got 28 rows on the worksheet, and I've got 8 columns, and it's going to accommodate all the data. But I want to freeze. I want it to look like the template that's shown next to the dot here. So what I'm going to do is, where it says header and footer, I'm going to click on the arrow that's next to that, and I'm going to say I want to have one header row, and I'm going to freeze that. And I'm going to have one header column. And I'm going to freeze that. And after I've done that with everything highlighted, I'm going to switch over from table to cell here. And it's showing me that I've got the 28 rows, the 8 columns, and basic information. If I go over to cell now, it's telling me that I can change the text color. So like I said, in the interest of time, I've already put all the data in, you just can't see it. So I'm going to tap on the thing next to the cell color, and I'm going to change it from white to black. And when I do that, all of the information comes out. Now, I'm going to highlight this first row. That's my header row. And I'm going to change the cell fill from white to a color, and I'm going to use the color blue. Now that's giving me the whole thing, and I don't want that. I only want that top row, so I'll go back to white, and then I will tap on stock number cell here, go across, and I'm going to change that from white to blue. The cell fill is going to be blue. Click on that, and it says I can pick a color, and I'm going to pick blue. Now I'm going to do the same thing for that first column. I'm going to make that blue also. So cell fill is white, and I'm going to change it to color of blue. So now those two are the same. Well, it's not so easy to read that way. So I'm going to change the text color in that row and that column. If you notice, text color is up here and it's black. I'm going to tap on that arrow next to that, and I'm going to change the text color to white. Shows up much better. I'm going to do the same thing on my header row. I'm going to change the text color to white. Now let me grab that again, text color. And I'm going to change that to white. I think that shows up better. Now, if I don't like white, I could have made it yellow, I suppose, or orange, or whatever. I happen to like the white, but it's a matter of personal preference. So I'll go back and make it white. So now I've got a sheet, the basis sheet, that has all of that data in there. And by the way, you'll notice that the text is just regular text. And so I'm going to highlight all of the text here, all the way down. And you'll notice along the top, take a look at where the old bouncing ball is, there's B, I, and U in a row. Well, what that stands for is bold or italics. And so I'm going to decide I'm going to make all of my text bold because it'll look better. So when I tap on that, you can see that all of the text that I have is changed to bold. Now I didn't highlight that first row. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the first row. I'm going to make that bold also. So it makes it look a little bit more presentable. So now what you're seeing is the basis for a spreadsheet that I have created. All of the information that is shown here is information that I had, and I was able to go ahead and enter the data. You'll notice, I hope, that there are 2 columns that are blank. One of them is the margin here, and the last one is the code here. And I'm going to go back and spend a little time explaining that in a minute. In the meantime, looking at what I've got here is we could make it a little bit more readable if we wanted, if we change the width of these columns. For example, if I highlight the cost, which I've just done, if I look at that, column D, and next to that you'll notice those two little lines. I can grab a hold of that with my finger or my mouse and squeeze it together a little bit, because all of the costs will fit into a column that doesn't have to be as wide as the rest. And similarly with inventory, I don't have as much room, but I can squeeze that back, make that a little bit less also. The margin of profit, which is going to be column F, I can highlight that and squeeze that together so that it shows there. And warehouse is nothing more than a number. And so I'm going to squeeze that together. Okay, the first column that we want to calculate is the one that is headed margin. Well, in order to do that, we need to understand what the formula is that we would use. In other words, how do you calculate margin? And the way you would calculate margin is by dividing the amount of profit that you're going to make if you sold 1 unit by the selling price. Look at the columns there. How would you calculate the amount of profit? And once you understand how to do that, let's start putting the formula in the first row of the margin column. So let's start out by putting in an equal sign. As soon as I do that, you'll notice 3 dots appear in the margin row. On the bottom, follow the bouncing ball there, you'll see that there is a formula row. So what we're gonna put in there is an equal sign, and you'll see that the equal sign appears then. We're gonna put in the parentheses, and then we're gonna calculate the amount of profit. What is the amount of profit? It is the selling price, which I just highlighted, minus the cost. And when I do that, you'll see on the menu row, it's sales price minus the cost. Now I'm going to close the parentheses. The difference between the sales price and the cost is going to give me the dollars of profit. And I want to divide that. So I put in a divided by. I can either do it from the row on the bottom or directly from my keyboard. I'm going to divide that by the sales price. Now, why did I use the parentheses? The parentheses make sure that the first number is sales price minus the cost. Without the parentheses, the formula would be incorrect. I'm happy now that I've entered the formula the way I want. And you'll see all the way over on the right-hand side, there is a place for me to select this green check. And then when I hit the green check, you're going to see that the margin appears, 4.79%. Now, the format could be wrong. I mean, it could come out as a decimal. It could come out as a lot of things if I haven't set the column up correctly. But that's all very changeable. If I tap on that cell, and which I'm going to do, and now I'm going to go on the lower right-hand side where it says, like a lightning bolt and the word cell. I'm going to click on that. And when I do that, a menu opens to say Autofill Cells. I'm going to tap on that, and you'll see that it gets surrounded by that little orangish yellow square, a rectangle in this case. Now, it's showing as a percentage, which is what I want, but I can look at the menu on the right-hand side and you'll see that one of the choices is to format. Now, right now, percentage is properly checked. If it wasn't, if it was shown as a number, then I would not have a percentage in the margin box. I would show a decimal. And so I would want to correct that before I went ahead with any more work on that column. So I'm going to go back to percentage. I'm going to select that. Now, to the right of percentage is a circle with an eye around it. I could tap that. And then it allows me to change the number of decimal places that I'm using for the margin. And you can see that it says 2 decimals are used. Well, maybe I want 4 decimals. So if I want 4 decimals, I'm going to tap the plus sign twice. Now I'm showing the margin to 4 decimal places. Well, the fact of the matter is I only want 2. So I'll hit it again 2 times. And now it's showing properly. What I want to do is I don't want to have to enter this formula for each one of the rows in this column. So I am going to go over underneath. You can see those 2 lines on the bottom of that box right here. I'm going to grab it with my finger and I'm going to drag it all the way down to the last row of data. And when I'm happy I've got it, I'm going to let it go and it's going to show me the margin for every one of the items on the list. That's the information that I want to have. So right now, any additional columns that I would add, I could do the same thing. Once I've entered the formula in that particular column, I can copy it down to as many rows as I choose to add to the sheet. So now let's go over and talk about the code, which is a totally different kind of formula. So now what's left is a bit more sophisticated formula. What we want in this last column is we want to identify quickly those items that are giving us a lower margin than we like, less profit. So we're going to create a formula for that. And I'm going to highlight the first row in that column. And I'm going to now begin typing in a formula. And I'm going to start out by saying equal if. And then I'm going to put in a parentheses and say that if, and I'm going to highlight the margin column, is less than would be the sideways pointing arrow to the left, is less than something. And I got to pick a number. Maybe I'll pick the number 25%, whatever I'm comfortable with, whatever I would like to know. So I will key in if it's less than 25%, and then I'm going to put in a comma. I want the message to appear in this cell that says low margin. And if I want text in the cells, I have to put it in double quotes. So I put in the quotes, and then I'm going to key in all caps, low margin. Another double quote. And if it doesn't, if it is higher than 25%, I want it to be blank. So I'll just put in 2 quotes and then close my parentheses. So that's the formula that I want. When I'm happy that that's right, I'm going to hit the green check. And you can see that the first item that has a margin of only 4.79% shows up as low margin. Now I'm going to see that that cell is highlighted, and I'm going to go into the lower right-hand corner here again, where it says cell with the little lightning bolt, and I'm going to tap on that. In the menu that's going to open, I'm going to say Autofill Cells. When I tap on that, it allows me to grab hold of that and take it down to the last item of data. And then you can see it has identified all of the items that have a lower margin than the margin that I have put in. I could change that margin if I wanted, but for now, that's what I want. Now, a couple of other things that I might want to do. Since this is like a error kind of message, is something that I want to look at, while that whole cell is, the whole row is highlighted, I'm going to go over to cell, and you notice on that says the text color is black, and certainly it's showing in black. I'm going to go opposite the text color, and I'm going to choose that arrow, and then I'm going to select color, and this time I'm going to change the color to red. And I can, it's red and it's bold, and so now I'm seeing this highlighted in a way where it's forcing my attention there because it looks different than any of the others. Now, you'll notice also that the writing in the cell is starting on the left-hand side. Underneath the text color, there's a few pictures there. The one on the left identifies that the writing is in the left. If I would select the one in the middle, you'll see that the cell low margin identification is now in the middle of the cell. That's just something that I could do if I wanted to. Now I can do other things to highlight different information on this. For example, maybe I have a particular item that's being sold, this sweatshirt. So I highlighted that cell, and I want to call my boss's attention to that, maybe, I don't know. So I highlight the whole thing, and I'm going to change the size of the type. Where if you look at the bouncing ball there, it now says 13. I'm going to change that 13, and I'm going to go up. There's 14, 15, 16. Now I'm showing it in a different type size. I also could change the cell, the type itself, if I wanted to, because the first thing says the font is Helvetica New. I could hit on that, and I could change this to Arial maybe, if I wanted. I could change it to any of the things that are listed there, even if I wanted it to be more of a highlighted like in italics if I wanted that. I could make it bold or unbold. If changing the size made the cell narrow and I can't fit everything in, like the cost cell, you can't hardly see that it's $16.94. I could tap on that cell D and I could make it a little bit bigger so it would show better. Now these are things you could do, but you don't have to do. These are just options that are available to you when you're, working in numbers or Excel. You have the same options, but it's just nice to know that that stuff is there for you to use if you want. We could change the typeface on all of these if we wanted to present it differently. We could change the colors of the type. We could put in formulas that do all kinds of different mathematical calculations if we wanted to, that would make the sheet look more professional or call our associates' attention to particular fields on the cell. And then kind of while we're at it, maybe we want to look at this stuff in a different order. Let's say we wanted to know what is the lowest margin or the highest margin, and we wanted to sort it by margin. above margin, which is column F, we're going to tap on that. And when we do that, you'll see everything in the cell is highlighted. Column actions, we can tap on that. And when we do that, another menu opens, and we could say sort ascending if that's what we wanted. And now it's showing all of the low margin items first. The important thing to realize is you're not losing the integrity of the data when you do it that way. Maybe we want to see all of the top selling items first. So we can hit that again. And we could end up, if we wanted, using the cell actions, we could sort it descending. So we're looking at the most profitable items first. We could also sort it by warehouse or by cost or by the amount of inventory that we have in stock, or by stock number or by the description. Whatever we're the most comfortable with and how we would want to present it to our classmates, our business associates, or just for our own personal use. So as far as creating a table, I'm going to end this video here. And then I'm going to go into the next one. It's going to talk about specific, very usable functions that are a part of numbers that will help you to do some pretty complicated calculations just using a few clicks on your iPad. You have just watched the video on using number software to create a spreadsheet. This is a how-to example showing you, using numbers, you can really create a professional worksheet that will be very functional. I know the video is long, but I really have tried to present all of the things you need to know to produce that spreadsheet that will give you a really professional look. I would appreciate if any comments that you have or questions about this video, you would post them in the area below so I can get answers to you very quickly, and I will be checking on those questions so that I do get that done for you. You'll find that there is a number section of videos on my website. Address is shown there. You'll just have to copy that down and then key it in so that the website will come up. And then I would also ask you to please subscribe to my channel by clicking on the subscribe button and bell icon, because this will get you copies of all of the new videos that I'm putting together as I post them. And it's important on numbers because Apple makes lots of changes, and so if you pick up a video or an instruction book that's 6 months or a year old even, what you're going to find is it's not going to be something that you could use regularly when you're working with numbers, because lots of stuff is going to change as Apple comes up with new ideas for how numbers should work.